Hogwarts Legacy is honestly, as a guy who's not necessarily the biggest Harry Potter fan, been having an absolute blast playing. This is seriously one of the best games that's come out, I think, in the last like 5 or 6 years. But what's not nearly as good as the game, unfortunately, is its performance. A lot of older systems are absolutely struggling to run this well. The PS5 isn't getting the performance that it was promised, and even if you use the recommended specs that Steam gives you, you may still run into some hitches while trying to run this game. So I thought to myself, well, I'm Andrew, I have a spare rig that has the recommended parts in it, so why don't I test it out and see if I can better optimize this game, and in doing so, help you better optimize your experience while playing it. But before we dive into the nitty-gritty, perhaps just as cool, let me tell you about February's giveaway. There are so many good games coming out this year that I thought that the only giveaway for February that made sense was a $70 Steam gift card. Hopefully one of you guys can get that game that you've been waiting for, and if you want to see how to enter, you can check down in the description below. Alright guys, so I just want to kind of dive in and show you my experience with optimizing this title. As always, all of the settings, hardware, all of that will be down in the description below so you can get a more detailed perspective on what my testing methodology was. And in case you're wondering, yes, I am a Slytherin. So anyway guys, let's dive into that testing.
Alright guys, so I have Hogwarts Legacy fired up right now. This is on our, basically, recommended spec computer, and it's about as close as it's going to be for Steam. So this is running a Ryzen 5600X, 16 gigabytes of DDR4, 3600 megahertz RAM, and an RTX 3060 Ti. Now, I have basically not touched any of the settings to see what the game would default, basically into. And it essentially has picked medium for our preset, based off the hardware inside the machine. So this is going to give you a pretty good barometer of the performance you can expect if you basically build a computer for the recommended specs, from Steam's website anyway. Now, in terms of FPS, I'm going to take a quick lap around the courtyard here. Don't worry, I've made sure that I'm somewhere where hopefully there's no spoilers or anything like that. But basically, you're just going to do a quick lap around here, and what you're going to notice is frames are going to drop down into the high 60s, but you're going to see a little bit of graphical hitching. This is one of the most common complaints I've heard for my friends who don't have a crazy powerful rig like my main one. By the way, if you guys are wanting to see some, basically 4K eye candy, I am going to post a video on that just for the memes. But for now, I want to essentially help people dial in and see what actual settings are going to have the biggest impact on your frames per second. What things can we give without basically sacrificing, the graphical experience of Hogwarts, because obviously the game does look pretty amazing. Now, the first thing I want to show you guys is if I try to go above the basically recommended spec for this game, the game is going to warn me that I don't have the hardware to run it. Now, if I accept it anyway and say that's fine, and get back into the game, you can see even just standing still, we are now sub 60 frames a second, which again, this isn't really even necessarily the worst experience. I mean, 30 to 60 FPS is console, so a lot of times, a lot of people will be satisfied with this. But if you can see when I, again, take another lap, we're dipping down into the 40s here, 47, 50, 55. Again, this game is going to be very demanding on systems that are older or systems that essentially aren't at that recommended spec. I mean, heck, if I start casting some spells, you can see that it's still fairly stable, but there's a little bit of hitching, getting a little bit of ghosting around the characters, and so it's not perfect. I'm expecting there's going to be lots of updates to make this better, but this is kind of what you can expect out of box. So what I want to do as a baseline is see what settings, if any, are going to have a dramatic impact on our frames per second. So the first thing that we're going to turn down to low is our population settings and see if that has any impact. So this is the quality of the NPCs around us. Seems like it's more or less the same, so that's fine. We're going to go through these one by one and see basically which ones have any impact on our settings, at least where we're at right now. And you will get different FPS depending on whether you're outside or you're inside. Oh, interestingly, we dropped to 50 on there, so that's, I don't know why, but that's fine. We're going to keep going through them. For view distance, interesting that that's actually something it did. Now, I don't have DLSS or anything turned on right now, so this is just baseline. Alright, that improved our FPS a little bit here. Let's go back in and see. So that was for texture quality, no surprises there. Now, shadows are definitely one of those things that, honestly, I don't think matters that much 99% of the time. And look at that. So that definitely had an impact on our overall performance. So again, shadow quality isn't something that I don't think most people are going to notice, but this is a setting that I'm absolutely going to leave it low because it appears that it's having one of the biggest impacts on FPS thus far. The other three, however, haven't seemed that they have had any impact, so we're going to go to post-process. So obviously you can see the description here. This is your depth of field, motion blur, lens, flares, impact, performance, etc. I'm actually going to turn all those off later to see what type of impact they have on the game performance, but let's take a quick look here. Alright, so that got us maybe another 5 to 10 from where we were. So that's definitely a setting that we may want to leave at low. Alright, moving right up the line. The amount of grass, basically, or the quality of the grass, either way you want to look at it, which again, this may have an impact. No, so this is the performance I'm talking about. We dropped 20 frames a second, and we went down in settings. They're going to still have to continue to fine-tune this game, obviously. Alright, sky quality, which, I mean, this will matter obviously more if you're looking directly at the sky. Wow, okay, so that one... Yeah, I think we picked up some serious frames, and... I mean, I don't know how often you're going to look at the sky, so this is a setting I would absolutely leave it low. Alright, fog quality, we're going to turn that to low. I mean, obviously this isn't necessarily the best scene to test that in. But I guess because of the fog in the background, that is actually having an impact on performance. We're starting to climb up here, guys. Alright, go into material quality, which again, is the quality of the material in the world. Pretty straightforward, right? Alright, so that netted us... Oh, see, that's the graphical hitching I was talking about. This is netting us, though, some more consistent FPS, so that's pretty cool. Alright, and the very last, effects quality. Now, obviously, this is only going to matter when there's actually effects on screen taking place. But we are back to a solid 100 frames per second. So, what I want to do is I want to just essentially do a side-by-side here. Alright guys, so here's a quick side-by-side of Ultra and Low. I am going to set it back to medium as far as the preset, but we're getting a difference of about 40-50 FPS, and obviously this will fluctuate depending on where you are, whether you're outside or not. Graphically, I can notice details specifically in the character models, kind of like the hair, things like that. You know, shadows and lighting do look a little bit better, but honestly, this isn't something that I think most people are really going to care about. The baseline game looks pretty good as is. Alright guys, so we're back to medium. As you can see, we're about 25 FPS less than low, but we could see that a lot of those settings weren't actually having that much of a graphical impact, and they honestly weren't things that I was really worrying about. Okay, we're, you know, fluctuating up here a little bit. So the settings that I'm going to mess with a little bit is, first off, we're going to set the effects quality to low, which again, I don't think that's going to matter most of the time as there's so much going on screen. Material quality, this is something that had a little bit of an impact, so we're going to set that to high. Fog quality, we're going to go low. Sky quality, we're going to go low. Foliage, we're going to go low. Post-processing, this is something I actually want to show you guys, as far as I want to basically turn all of these things off. I don't care about motion blur. I don't really care about depth of field. This is something some people will care about. Chromatic aberration and film grain. These are all things that really I don't care about. So I'm going to turn off all of those settings and go back into our regular here. So again, effects quality, we're going to go low. Materials quality, going to go high. Fog, low. Sky, low. I don't know why I keep calling it sky. Grass and stuff, low, don't really care about that. Post-processing, I actually want high. Shadows, I want low. Textures, I want high. View distance, I want high. And population, I want low. So basically, what I've done is I've dialed in kind of what the settings I care about. And none of these are things I'm going to really care about when I'm playing this game. You'll notice anti-aliasing is currently set to low. I'm not going to set that to high. We're going to mess a little bit with DLSS. But for now, let's see how much FPS we picked up. Yeah, so I'm going to, once again, do a side-by-side here. 1 sec. Alright guys, so here we have my optimized settings versus 1080p Ultra preset. So I'm going to be completely honest. I don't notice that much difference. Yes, there are minute details and things like that, but I think that what this illustrates is that, especially at 1080p, a lot of the graphical things, the kind of the eye candy, aren't really going to show up unless you're playing at 1440p or 4K. So going on the lower settings and turning some of the settings off like I did, I don't think is going to impact your, experience as far as visually that much, but I think it's absolutely going to help your frames per second, which obviously we're trying to squeeze as much out as we can. Now, the next setting I want to talk about is DLSS. So for you guys who don't understand what this is, DLSS, AMD FSR, these are upscaling technology. So what you can see right now is my rendering resolution is matching the monitor. It's 1080p. If I go down to NVIDIA DLSS and do auto, it's picking one of the presettings, but it's basically lowering my resolution. The way this works is NVIDIA essentially takes a high quality image, downscales it to whatever this is, and then re-upscales it to this resolution to give you a high resolution image using AI. I'm going to essentially set this to performance to start off with, which again, now we're getting only 50% of our essentially rendered resolution. And we're going to take a look at what this looks like versus just no DLSS rendering it 100%. All right, guys, so you can see we're getting a difference of maybe 15 to 20 FPS, and graphically, the only thing with DLSS and performance that I'm noticing is basically that the character models are maybe a little bit softer in the background. That's to be expected, but this is the easiest way that you can pick up some frames, is honestly enabling DLSS. Especially that's for NVIDIA cards. If you have an AMD card, the equivalent would be FSR. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank it up to DLSS quality, meaning that the upscaling resolution is going to be higher, and we're going to see how much of a performance dip we get there. So interestingly, guys, the frames per second that we're getting with DLSS quality is fairly close to some of our more optimized settings. Now, this isn't 100% perfect, of course, but I think that you can squeeze by with quality if you want to have a better graphical experience and squeeze more frames. Remember, this is at 1080p ultra settings, so we're technically running this above what the game says our hardware can handle, but we're getting a fairly steady frames per second, at least in this courtyard, with dips, obviously. Again, that is more the performance of this game than anything else. So now, out of curiosity, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick us back to medium and see what type of loss we have, if any, or what improvement we have, and I'm going to leave DLSS at quality just to take a quick look. Now, this is something I've noticed specifically with 1080p. DLSS has the greatest impact at higher resolutions. We still are getting some pretty good graphics here in terms of our overall FPS. And yeah, if we go back to kind of our original place, okay, so yeah, we definitely picked up like 20 to 30 frames. So realistically speaking, if I was going to play this game, the settings that I would use is I would first optimize and leave DLSS at quality, because I don't see a good reason not to. Effects quality, again, we're going to go low. Material quality, we're going to go high. Fog, sky, grass, we're going to do that all at low. Post-processing, we're going to go high. Shadow, low. Texture quality, high. View distance, we're going to leave it medium, and population quality, we're going to leave it medium as well. And look at that. So now with optimizing it just a little bit more, we were able to pick up more FPS, and I realistically can't see that much of a difference between these two settings. So once again, if you are wanting to use these settings, just feel free to obviously do so, but this gives you an idea of how to optimize this game a little bit better. With new driver updates, and updates to the game, I do expect performance overall to get better in this game, just generally speaking. But hopefully you found this video helpful in how to dial in and get a little bit more performance out of your machine. I mean, heck, going from what we were at the beginning, from 80 maybe frames to 90 frames max at medium, now we have a much better graphical experience. We're getting a lot more frames, which is going to help us have a better experience overall, especially for those unexpected dips, like when we swing around to the back side of here. And so I think that these are the settings that I would use personally if I was running this game on this rig. Once again, I am going to be doing a 4K like ultra everything on my main system because it can absolutely handle it if you want to just see some eye candy on that. But if you like this video, make sure to get subscribed. Go ahead and leave me a big thumbs up if that's something that you thought was valuable, and enter that giveaway if you haven't already. But guys, thanks for watching, and I hope to see all of you next time.